Lin Qiu watches them reunite. He completely understands that feeling. No normal person would believe this kid got so skinny in just one single month. Curious Truong Nhi then asks what their eldest brother's name is. Truong Tam replies it is Truong Jate, leaving Lin Qiu wondering why the eldest was not named Truong One. Soon, the two Truong brothers are joyfully embracing and celebrating their reunion. Hearing them call each other brother makes Lin Qiu widen his eyes. Are they even blood brothers? He thinks they must both be adopted. Truong Tam introduces Lin Qiu as his brother, who always looks out for him at school. So you are Lin Qiu. Truong Nhi greets him warmly. He says he heard a lot about him and offers to be called second brother. Hello? Lin Qiu politely shakes his hand. The brother then suggests they go inside to chat more comfortably. Lin Qiu secretly smiles, knowing businessmen are smooth talkers, who probably just heard his name for the very first time. Stepping inside the elevator, Lin Qiu looks around in deep curiosity. He thinks it is no surprise they are wealthy, since even their elevator is incredibly fancy. Once the doors open, they step into a massive showroom packed with valuable ancient antiques. Truong Tam explains his brother loves collecting things when he is not busy managing the company. Amazing. Lin Qiu marvels at all the antiques. Truong Nhi proudly asks Lin Qiu what he thinks of all these precious treasures of his. Lin Qiu stays quiet for a moment, examining the items around him. He runs his appraisal system on an antique. Instantly, it flags it as a fake. He chuckles silently. A whole room, yet it is filled with fakes. He bluntly tells him that while the collection looks decent overall, most of these items are actually clever fakes. Completely stunned, Truong Nhi gasps. How is that possible? Truong Nhi points and fires back, claiming he spent a fortune on these items, and even hired a grandmaster to appraise them. Truong Tam quickly intervenes. Calm down. Lin Qiu calmly suggests that if his second brother is skeptical, he can pick any random item for a quick appraisal. Immediately, Truong Nhi puts on gloves, remarking that the kid is still pretty young. He seriously doubts this kid has a sharper eye than those seasoned professional experts. Truong Nhi pulls out a tall stem cup. Lin Qiu looks it over and identifies it as a Yuan Dynasty blue and white cloud dragon high-foot bowl. It features a wide-mouthed deep body and 3 raised rings around the tall foot, with a joint-like stem, a classic grass pattern on the rim, and 2 dragons pressed inside. Lin Qiu confidently points out the exterior depicts 2 dragons chasing a pearl. The blue and white flame border is incredibly vivid, showing smooth, powerful brushwork. It easily passes as a masterpiece of Yuan Dynasty blue and white porcelain. If it were actually genuine, this piece would easily fetch 20 million. Truong Nhi gets smug, admitting he did not expect the kid to have this much talent. He boasts he spent 25 million on this, but Lin Qiu cuts him off, telling him not to celebrate just yet. Lin Qiu explains that genuine Yuan Dynasty decorations are highly distinct with very specific layers and iron spots in the glaze. Even though this particular piece is incredibly well crafted, it is nothing but a fake. Basically, it is just a modern replica, worth around 100,000. Talk about a painful reality check. Truong Nhi stammers in utter heartbroken shock. Are you seriously telling me I threw away 25 million on a 100,000 piece? Lin Qiu pats his shoulder comfortingly, telling his second brother to stay strong as they keep appraising. The two keep sorting through the collection, with Lin Qiu declaring one fake is worth 18,000 at most. He points to another piece, warning that if it cost more than 300,000, he got majorly scammed. Truong Nhi snaps. Enough, shut up! Lin Qiu can only awkwardly stammer out an apology. Lin Qiu worries he might have pushed things too far and driven the poor guy completely over the edge. But Truong Nhi suddenly wraps an arm around him, mentioning an auction happening tomorrow afternoon. He wants Lin Qiu to come along and sniff out some treasures in exchange for a nice commission. The next morning at 10 o'clock, Lin Qiu is still lazily rolled up in bed. Thinking it's still pretty early, he figures Truong Tam hasn't even woken up yet. Our main character summons System 9527 to roll for today's daily skill, prompting a loading screen. Congratulations, you have unlocked the B-grade skill X-ray vision. Instantly, spicy thoughts of Chun Chun flood his mind, giving him a massive nosebleed as he squeals. The absolute dream power. When the system asks if he wants to learn it, he happily accepts. Urging the system to hurry up, the notification warns that X-ray vision reveals the true nature of all matter. He wonders how a legendary power like this is only rated B-grade, when it clearly deserves an S rank. Testing his new eyes on a nearby vase and fish tank, he is absolutely blown away. Every single detail of their internal structures is completely visible to him. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out, "Brother Lin, you awake yet?" Lin Qiu turns around, and his eyes pierce straight through Truong Tam's entire body. Panicking instantly, he shrieks that he is going blind. This is basically turning him into a walking, talking human X-ray machine. Desperately rubbing his eyes, he wonders why this version of X-ray vision is so different from his fantasy. Truong Tam walks closer, asking what his brother is spacing out for so early in the morning. Lin Qiu blanks, mentally deciding to just act like he did not unlock any useful skills today. He claims it is nothing, asking why Trung Tam is here, who reminds him of their plans. Lam Tu is surprised when Trung Tam's brother invites them to go to an auction together. It is held at the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion, where guards stand tall. Lam Tu, Trung Nhi, and Trung Tam walk inside together. Looking at the guards, Lam Tu notices something shocking. Even the security here possesses spiritual energy. Trung Nhi leads them inside as an employee welcomes them, asking President Truong to follow him since a crowd has already gathered. Trung Tam whispers that everyone attending this auction is incredibly wealthy, and that is not even the half of it. Suddenly, Lam Thu spots Zhen Zhen and smiles, thrilled to run into his goddess in a place like this. Zhen Zhen notices him and asks in surprise what he's doing there. Lam Thu's eyes light up as he admires how beautiful Zhen Zhen looks today. Out of nowhere, Zhen Zhen's mother asks if she knows him. She introduces him to her mother as Lam Thu. Van Thi Ham, Zhen Zhen's mother, looks at him and repeats his name. Lam Thu is completely stunned to realize this is Zhen Zhen's mother. She crosses her arms, studying him closely as she repeats his name, while Lam Thu's eyes go wide with shock. Could this be his future mother-in-law, Van Thi Ham? Then asks if he is the kid who kept beating her precious daughter. Trung Nhi steps in to greet her, calling her aunt. Van Thi Ham recognizes Trung Nhi and asks if they all know each other. Trung Nhi explains that Trung Tam is his younger brother. Since Lam Thu is his brother's classmate, the pieces finally fall into place for Van Thi Ham. She smiles and mentions her daughter talks about him quite often. Lam Thu scratches his head, flattered to hear it, but Van Thi Ham is not done. She remarks that very few people get Zhen Zhen's attention like this, causing the embarrassed girl to tug at her arm. Sensing his chance, Lam Thu flatters her, saying he would have mistaken her for Zhen Zhen's sister, because they are both so gorgeous. Van Thi Ham bursts into laughter, clearly pleased by his smooth talking. But deep down, she thinks of him as a total smooth talker. Meanwhile, Zhen Zhen steps closer to Lam Thu with a red face, telling him to stop talking nonsense. Lam Thu immediately agrees to whatever his goddess says, while Van Thi Ham watches him, finding him more likable by the second. She feels this boy is just her type, and can sense Zhen Zhen's growing feelings for him. Suddenly, a loud announcement declares the auction is about to begin. But first, there is a quick reminder for all the guests. Li Tranvu, the owner of Heavenly Treasure Pavilion, warns everyone that even though these antiques have been appraised, there is always a chance that fakes have slipped through the cracks. The golden rule applies here. Once a deal is made, there are absolutely no refunds. Lam Thu smirks, realizing the owner is basically dodging any responsibility if someone buys a fake. Without wasting any more time, Li Tranvu officially declares the auction open. He calls for the very first item to be brought out. It is a blue and white plum blossom bowl. Starting at 2 million with minimum increments of 100,000, he invites interested buyers to start placing their bids. Trung Nhi immediately takes an interest and asks Lam Thu if this piece is the real deal. Lam Thu is taken aback by how eager he is, wondering why he is rushing on the very first item. After studying it quietly, Lam Thu confirms that it is indeed genuine. He warns it is not worth over 5 million. The second those words leave Lam Thu's mouth, Trung Nhi immediately stands up and bids 5 million. Lam Thu facepalms as Li Tranvu asks if there are any other bids. The entire room falls completely silent. Then he announces loudly congratulations to young Master Zhang for winning the first item for 5 million. Lin Qiu asks second brother, "There is a betting event after the auction, right?" Zhang Er replies, "That is right, but I normally do not have any interest in betting." "Tell me, brother Lin, are you interested in betting on stones?" Lin Qiu wears a mischievous smirk, thinking that not being interested would be a total waste of his newly awakened X-ray vision. Suddenly, a man's voice calls out, "What a coincidence, Aunt Yoon and Sister Zhen, you are all here as well." This guy is Song Ge, the young master of the Huideng group. Song Ge immediately smiles, telling Zhen she is getting more beautiful by the day. Zhen looks disgusted with his presence when suddenly another hand grabs her wrist, taking Song Ge completely by surprise. Lin Qiu looks at her affectionately, saying, "Zhen, there you are. I have been looking for you all this time." Blushing deeply, Zhen mutters Lin Qiu. The auction continues with a wealthy businessman's bronze wine cup starting at 300,000. Bored Lin Qiu glances over and whispers, "It is fake." Next is a landscape painting starting at 400,000. Another painting follows with a starting bid of 500,000, but Lin Qiu notes it is just another decent fake. As the auction winds down, Li Zhenwu takes the stage and addresses the crowd. "One cut brings poverty, one brings wealth, one leads to heaven, and one to hell. We have prepared plenty of raw jadeite stones in the hall right next door. Furthermore, Tianbao Pavilion has acquired a bizarre stone this time that is guaranteed to contain a treasure. The listed price is 100 million, so if you are interested, please proceed to the hall." And so the crowd flocks to the hall, and you know things are about to get wild. Seeing Zhen's reaction, Lin Qiu is highly amused and turns back to openly mock Song Ge. Sung Ge fumes inwardly, cursing this brat for daring to ruin his plans once again. With a smirk, Lin Qiu holds Zhenjin's hand and walks away. Sung Ge immediately calls his butler Uncle Wang, demanding complete background details on that annoying brat. Uncle Wang complies while Lin Qiu and Qin Zhenjin make their way through the busy crowd. Lin Qiu looks around, thinking that no one can see them anymore. As he lets go of her hand, Qin Zhenjin shyly threatens to chop it off if he ever tries that again. Lin Qiu retorts, "Do not bite, the hand that feeds you that creep was clearly after your looks. I was only trying to help." Blushing Zhenjin brushes her hair back, telling him not to address her so intimately again. "But thanks for earlier." Lin Qiu smiles, thinking she is just too adorable, and honestly, who can blame him? She suddenly turns on him, demanding to know who he was calling a dog. Rubbing the back of his neck, Lin Qiu stammers that it was just a metaphor and takes it back. Yun Shihan interrupts their bickering, telling them to break it up. "There are too many people around, so stop arguing and let us go look at the stones." Lin Qiu cheerfully agrees, promising to listen to his Aunt Yun. As the three reach the exhibition area, Lin Qiu observes that these are all raw, unpolished stones. In the stone betting business, the mining locations are officially called pits, and the extracted stones themselves are referred to as raw materials. No one can judge if there is jadeite inside just by looking, let alone determine its actual grade. This uncertainty is what gave birth to stone betting. The ordinary-looking stones are called completely raw materials, carrying incredibly high risk, but very low prices. Meanwhile, stones that are partially cut open are semi-raw, offering lower risk, but costing a whole lot more. Various experts are already carefully examining the stones. Observing this, Lin Qiu quickly realizes that this must be the bizarre stone the host was talking about. This semi-revealed stone with decent light is already worth tens of millions. If it actually yields green jade, it would go for at least 300 million. Thinking this, he uses his X-ray vision to inspect the stone. He sighs in disappointment. There is absolutely nothing inside besides a flashy, deceptive exterior. It looks like the sponsor's side has their own expert who noticed this flaw early on and put it up for sale. Anyone who actually buys this rock is bound to go completely bankrupt. Song Ka suddenly appears and warns him to stay far away from Zhenjin. A privileged darling of heaven like her is simply not someone a guy like you deserves. Lam Tu bursts out laughing and asks if he thinks he actually deserves her. Song Ka proudly brags that he and Zhenjin are of equal status and a match made in heaven. Lam Tu mockingly asks what brand of trash bag he uses since it suits him so well. Fuming with rage, Song Ka snaps and demands to know if he dares insult him. Lam Tu casually picks his nose and says he did not insult anyone because his target is not even human. Song Ka is left completely speechless with rage. As the surrounding crowd bursts into laughter at his humiliation, Song Ka scowls and calls him out. He demands they stop the useless talk and place a bet where the loser stays away from Zhenjin. Furious at being treated like some prize to be won, Zhenjin speaks up. Lam Tu immediately hides behind Zhenjin's back, addressing him as young Master Song. He reminds him that Zhenjin is not a commodity to be used as a gambling chip. Infuriated Song Ka barks back that he did no such thing and tells him to shut up. Gritting his teeth, he sneers that hiding behind a woman shows no real strength. He challenges him to a bet where the loser pays 100 million. Sticking out his tongue, Lam Tu mockingly asks what he will do if he refuses. Song Ka smirks, claiming a penniless loser like him could never afford that kind of money anyway. Lam Tu scoffs, saying he only refuses because the bet is way too small. He deadpans, challenging him to raise the bet to 500 million instead. Song Ka falls silent, realizing that while 500 million is not everything, if he actually loses, his family will definitely not let him off easily. But backing down now means losing all his reputation and face. He cautiously questions Lam Tu, demanding to know if he even has that much cash. Suddenly, Truong Ni shows up, throws an arm around Lam Tu, and offers to cover the entire debt if his brother loses. Song Ka smiles slyly, turning to his old butler to ask if he is confident in stone gambling. Can we win this? With a look of pure disdain, Uncle Wang dismisses him as just an inexperienced greenhorn. Song Ka instantly accepts, warning him not to cry when he loses in a bit. Lam Tu quickly fires back with a grin, saying they will see who ends up crying. Noticing Zhenjin staring intensely at Lam Tu, Van Thiham teases her about having feelings for him. She immediately protests, asking what her mother is talking about since she is still young. Van Thiham smiles playfully, noting that she is not that young anymore. Zhenjin blushes deeply at her comment, complaining that her mother is teasing her again. Chuckling warmly, she pats her head and tells her she will stop. She promises not to pry or interfere in her personal business anymore, as long as her daughter is happy. Zhenjin beams with joy at her mother's words and happily thanks her. Li Tranvu suddenly steps in, noting it is rare to see such excitement, and offering to serve as the official witness for their wager. He continues explaining that the raw stones here are divided into 5 different tiers based on their prices. ranging from 3,000 to 10,000 up to 100,000, and finally 1 million. The stakes range from 1 million to 10 million, and finally over 10 million. Each side chooses 10 raw stones, and the one with the higher total value wins. Lin Qiu and Wang Ba immediately set off to choose their raw stones. A moment later, Wang Ba hands a green stone to Li Tranvu, announcing he is finished. Li Tranvu takes the stone with a sly smile just as Lin Qiu steps up to declare he is done too. He takes both stones and begins to examine them closely. All of Wang Ba's stones look incredibly premium, easily outclassing the ones Lin Qiu picked out. Li Tranvu looks over at Lin Qiu, wondering if this kid actually knows anything about stone appraisal. Surely he is not just hoping to win this match on pure luck. After a brief inspection, he asks how they want to cut their stones and who will go first. Lin Qiu speaks up immediately, let him go first, and just cut right along his drawn line. The stone cutter carefully makes his cut, right along Lin Qiu's markings. Suddenly, the cutter stops in sheer shock, drawing gasps from the crowd. We struck gold and ice species red jade. Li Tranvu picks up the stone to examine it closely before giving his professional opinion. The quality is superb with vibrant color and excellent translucency. He looks at Lin Qiu and values the red jade at 10 million, prompting a proud grin from the young man. Onlookers can only marvel at his incredible luck hitting a rare red jade on his very first try. Watching this unfold, Wang Ba and young Master Song are not pleased at all. Li Tranvu calls for the next round, asking young Master Song how he wants his stone cut. Wang Ba impatiently tells him to just slice it right down the middle to save time. Lin Qiu can only snicker. Wang Ba glares, asking what is so funny. He calmly shrugs it off, just remembered a joke from yesterday. Is it a crime to laugh? Wang Ba only responds with an annoyed grunt. Li Tranvu quickly intervenes to start the cut. With that, the professional stonecutter begins his work with extreme precision. Standing back, Lin Qiu remembers he actually had his eye on that exact stone too, since it was much larger. He just did not expect Wang Ba to have such sharp eyes to snatch it up so quickly. Lin Qiu just smiles as the stone splits. Everyone gasps. It is out, a rare ice species, yellow jade, absolute premium quality. Young Master Song is absolutely thrilled. Turning to Wang Ba, he notices the elder looks deeply troubled and asks what is wrong. After all, their stone is much larger than Lin Qiu's. With both being ice species, victory should be guaranteed, but Wang Ba remains completely silent. Li Tranvu inspects the yellow stone. That reckless cut right down the middle ruined its integrity, lowering the valuation to 8 million. Song yells out in absolute rage, unable to believe his ears. Li Tranvu officially declares Lin Qiu the winner of this round, making Chan Chan jump with joy. She holds up 2 fingers, cheering that they are already 2 million ahead. Lin Qiu watches her smile, deeply touched that his goddess is so genuinely thrilled for his success. He smiles back warmly, agreeing that they have taken the lead. Promising to buy Chan Chan a nice gift after this is over. Blushing furiously, she stammers that his match has nothing to do with her, so no gift is needed. Lin Qiu sheepishly scratches his head and agrees to get back to picking his next stones. With that said, he goes ahead and picks his second stone. Lin Qiu figures that since he is up by 2 million, playing it humble right now is totally fine. For the second stone, neither side reveals any jade, so it does not count. Third stone goes to Wang Ba with 1 million versus Lin Qiu's 900,000. But looking at the final stone, Lin Qiu just smiles confidently. Tong Ka whispers to Wang Ba that the kid only leads by 1.9 million, so the gap is pretty small. Wang Ba quickly explains that their stones alone ended up costing them over 10 million. But Lin Qiu spent less than 100,000 in total. Hearing this, Tong Ka gasps in absolute shock. What? He spent almost nothing on his stones yet. His total value beats ours by 1.9 million. As Lin Qiu quietly smiles back at them, Wang Ba immediately realizes that this kid is definitely a master. A moment later, Li Tranvu announces that it is time for both sides to choose their final stone. Lin Qiu is currently leading by 1.9 million. Gentlemen, please make your move. Wang Ba asks nervously, young master, what should we do? I'm not confident about the remaining stones. He quickly realizes that if they lose this, the company faces a 500 million loss, and he cannot take that blame. Tong Ta grinds his teeth in deep frustration. With the current gap, pulling out one good piece will easily flip this defeat into a victory. He refuses to accept a loss. Suddenly, his eyes go wide and he points directly at a massive stone, shouting that he wants to cut it. Truong Ni instantly objects, pointing out that since part of that stone already shows a 10,000 value, it is not a real gamble. This is straight-up cheating. Tong Ta quickly fires back, arguing they only agreed to compare the final cut value, not the price of the raw stone itself. To himself, he reasons that even if this rare stone costs 100 million, it is worth it. Winning means taking 500 million, so even after subtracting the stone costs, he will still walk away with over 300 million. Lam Thu, you are absolutely dead meat. Chan Chan scowls, calling him shameless for actually resorting to using the shop's ultimate treasure. Lam Thu smirks, asking young Master Tong if he is confident enough to raise the stakes since he is acting so cocky. How about the loser gives all of their cut jade to the winner? Tong Ka stutters in surprise, asking why he would want to raise the bet when there is no need for it. But then he overhears the crowd behind him whispering that he's probably too chicken and lacks the guts for stone gambling. Gritting his teeth, Tong Ka agrees to the bet, telling Lam Thu to go ahead and pick his stone. Seeing Tong Ta make such a reckless move, Wang Ba gasps in shock and calls out to him. He looks at Lam Thu and realizes the kid's stone gambling skills are deep and terrifying, thinking they are completely doomed this time. After studying the remaining options, Lam Thu finally settles on a tiny, ordinary-looking stone. The onlookers instantly start whispering among themselves at his bizarre choice. What kind of valuable jade could possibly come out of a cheap 3,000 yuan stone? Maybe he felt too much pressure after seeing young Master Tong's rare piece, and decided to throw the match. The young host of the stone gamble points to Lam Thu, asking if he is absolutely sure about his choice. Holding the rough green stone in his hand, Lam Thu calmly replies that he is absolutely sure. Cut it, the host says, placing both raw stones on the cutting table to prepare them. But the middle-aged challenger loudly interrupts the process, demanding they cut his stone first, because he wants to crush the kid and leave him no hope of winning. Agreeing to his demand, the blade slices down into the man's raw green stone first. The young master's butler stammers nervously, saying the harsh reality is that this stone seems to be completely worthless. He stubbornly barks back, demanding they keep cutting. There is no way a stone this massive contains absolutely no jade, he tells himself. Shouting repeatedly to cut deeper each slice only brings him closer to absolute disappointment. There is absolutely nothing inside. It is completely empty. The stonecutter steps up, repeating the old saying that even gods cannot judge a piece of raw jade. Even though young Master Song did not pull top-tier jade, his exposed piece is still valued at 15 million. Hearing this, young Master Song desperately clings to his final shred of hope. That is right, he is still 13 million ahead of that worthless brat! He refuses to believe that the kid can pull anything worth more than 13 million. The host turns to Lam Thu, asking if he wants to cut his stone now. No more cutting, he replies. The crowd instantly assumes he is backing out in defeat, muttering that the kid finally surrendered. He just threw away 500 million, but Lam Thu actually wants the entire stone ground down instead. The stunned host asks who grinds a stone from the start, unless it is completely solid jade inside. To them, this is just a cheap 3,000 yuan rock. They think the brat is just playing mysterious and wasting everyone's time. But as the stone is ground down, every single jaw in the crowd instantly hits the floor. It is imperial green, a massive piece worth at least 50 million. Lam Thu's friend is thrilled this is a legendary win on a tiny budget. His friends are absolutely speechless. Just one ring made from this could easily sell for 400,000, and we only spent 3,000. This guy is a literal genius. Seriously, talk about an absolute blowout. Lam Thu looks down at the slumped man, teasingly reminding young Master Song to pay up as agreed. Covered in cold sweat, the young master mutters that 600 million is completely gone. The host immediately steps forward, desperate to buy the imperial green jade. He offers 60 million on the spot, begging Lam Thu to sell him the gem. Instantly, a massive bidding war erupts, with offers quickly climbing to 85 million. The host screams a final offer of 100 million, shutting down all competition. Grinning with satisfaction, the host declares that this bet was absolutely legendary. He adds that he wants to buy up all of Lam Thu's other jades too. This plays right into Lam Thu's hands. He smiles, saying that saves him a lot of trouble, and thanks the host. The host carts away almost all the jade, leaving Lam Thu with just one final piece. He pauses thoughtfully, turning his gaze toward Tan Chan Chan. She waits, holding her breath. He is holding a beautiful red jade. Could he be giving it to her? What if he confesses his feelings right now? Should she even say yes? She blushes, covering her face in pure excitement, totally unprepared for this romantic moment. But she is completely mistaken. Lam Thu is actually targeting her mother instead. Bowing politely, he tells her mother that he wanted to offer a small first meeting gift. He asks if she likes this beautiful red jade piece. Mother Tan smiles gently, praising the young man for being so thoughtful. She secretly thinks he is a bit too direct. Poor Tan Chan Chan never stood a chance. She gives him an approving nod, telling him to keep up the good work. Lam Thu plays along, calling her mother-in-law and promising to do his absolute best. While Lam Thu is winning over the parents, young Master Song is getting absolutely screamed at by his dad. Blocked by security until he pays up, he had to call his father to bail him out. Luckily for him, even though his father rants, he still transfers the cash to save his son. Lam Thu chuckles quietly, seeing that the young master just got a brutal lecture from his old man. Young Master Song is all grown up, but he still holds childish, petty grudges. Just you wait, kid. When a ping confirms the transfer, Lin Qiu smirks. The money is in, thanks, Master Song. That is a whole lot of cash. He waves goodbye to the two Song brothers whose faces are completely dark with rage. Safe travels, you two, he calls out, pocketing the heavy cash with absolute satisfaction. 600 million in one single day, he is filthy rich. But then he remembers his little high-maintenance pet, realizing this small fortune won't last long because his little ancestor already devoured all of his spirit beads. Lin Qiu's friend sighs in admiration, telling him that today's stone gambling showdown was absolutely incredible. Suddenly, a brilliant idea strikes Lin Qiu, and he asks his second brother for a quick favor. His friend warmly replies, "Go ahead, Brother Lin. Your business is my business." Lin Qiu explains that he wants to give him all his winnings from this bet. He hopes his friend can help him purchase gold-tier lightning and space attribute spirit beads. His friend readily agrees, telling him that getting those beads is absolutely no problem at all. But while lightning types are easy to get, 600 million might not be enough for space-type beads. Lin Qiu knows that a single person's resources cannot compare to a massive corporation. Plus, Changyi might have a special shortcut, so Lin Qiu responds with firm determination. "No worries, brother, just look out for it." Changyi readily agrees if anything comes up, he will definitely secure it for him. Deeply grateful, Lin Qiu thanks his second brother in advance for the massive help. Night falls. A full moon glows as they head back. Telling them to rest for the next 2 days, Lin Qiu collapses onto his bed, calling the system. 9527 get to work. A virtual screen flickers to life as he draws a new skill. It is the legendary SS rank Jade Rabbit Beast transformation skill belonging to Fairy Changyi, possessing devastating combat power under the moonlight. Congratulations, host, on obtaining the SS rank Beast transformation skill, the legendary Jade Rabbit form. Wait, this makes no sense. He has not drawn an E rank skill for 3 straight days, prompting 9527 to grumble back, complaining even after drawing a great skill. Fine, starting tomorrow. Lin Qiu quickly cuts in, begging the system to stop questioning why he can awaken another transformation. How is this even possible? Coughing twice, the system explains that normal beast forms cannot fuse with him, but the Jade Rabbit is different. They will not conflict. 9527 asks if he wants to fuse them, and Lin Qiu quickly agrees. The system announces that fusion is successful, congratulating the host on evolving from Doraemon to the Space Moon Rabbit. Lin Qiu jokingly notes that the name is not bad, but asks if the system forgot about his lightning element. Not at all. It just felt that calling it the Space Lightning Moon Rabbit sounded a bit too clunky to say. The SS rank Space Moon Rabbit's lunar master form awakens his inner ambition through moonlight, and Lin Qiu magnanimously lets it slide. Fine, this name actually sounds pretty good to my ears, so I will reluctantly forgive you this time. Opening the skill board, when Lunar Master is activated, the No Moon state gives a 100% boost. Half Moon state boosts stats by 101 to 199%. Full Moon plus 500%. Lin Qiu is stunned. 500% is an absolutely insane boost, completely overpowered. He wants to try it right away, eager to see his new transformation in action. Stepping off the bed, he plants one hand on the floor and shouts for transformation. The lunar prism power activates instantly, sprouting a pair of fluffy white rabbit ears on his head. Staring at his second-tier transformation in the mirror, Lin Qiu can't help but admire just how incredibly handsome he looks. Although his spiritual energy consumption increased significantly, his overall stats multiplied several times. He turns to System 9527, asking it to run a quick calculation for him. In his full moon state, if he goes completely all out, how long can he hold it? The analysis begins. Calculating with the host's current rank, going completely all out will last for exactly 1 minute, though a regular state lasts a bit longer. Seeing the 1-minute limit on screen, Lin Qiu complains that it is way too short. The system reminds him that this is actually a 5 times increase from before. Conceding that a 5 times boost is actually quite nice, Lin Qiu decides to be satisfied. Being a real man for 1 minute is still pretty decent. Right then, his glasses-wearing friend suddenly pushes the door open, calling him to wake up and eat. Accidentally catching Lin Qiu acting like a fool, the guy immediately slams the door shut, swearing up and down that he saw absolutely nothing. Left in a very awkward silence, Lin Qiu wonders if he needs to silence him permanently. 2 days later, the friends return to campus with his glasses-wearing buddy, amazed by the massive crowd returning today. Lin Qiu notes that classes are finally officially starting. A lively girl with a high ponytail suddenly yells bossily at the two of them. She demands that they stop right there and carry her luggage. Playing along smoothly, Lin Qiu asks Tam if he heard some weird noise just now. Tam shakes his head, claiming he did not hear a single thing. Annoyed at being completely ignored, the girl screams out, prompting Lin Qiu to frown and shoot her a cold side-eye. This arrogant girl is actually a 9-star gold-tier dark element awakened. Lam Van Hin, the haughty third-year student, asks if they are completely deaf. Coldly, Lam Qiu asks what she wants, which immediately gets under her skin. This guy has some nerve considering no one in this academy has ever ignored her before. She delusionally assumes they are just playing hard to get, using a cheap trick to catch her attention. With that thought, she softens her voice, offering them one more chance to move her bags. Lam Qiu does not hold back, asking her directly why they should, leaving her stunned. He righteously questions if they have any obligation to help her. Does she always treat people like this when asking for favors? Or do they somehow owe her? Truong Tam nods along in full agreement as Lam Van Hien completely runs out of words. His point is valid, but normally shouldn't guys be eager to serve her? Ordering them around fails. Softly, she claims she is terribly sorry to trouble her senior brothers. Could they please help her carry just a bit of her luggage? She politely thanks them, and seeing her change of heart, Lam Qiu generously agrees to help. He notes that speaking politely from the start would have saved everyone some trouble. Lam Qiu figures, since she has a decent attitude and admits her fault, helping her out is really no big deal. Noticeably more polite now, Lam Van Hien asks if they are new freshmen this year. She asks how she should address them. Truong Tam introduces both himself and Lam Qiu, pointing out that she probably should have introduced herself first. Quite surprised that someone actually does not recognize her, Lam Van Hien speaks up. She reveals her name is Lam Van Hien, and that she is a third-year student here. Truong Tam gets excited. Apparently, she was once ranked as the #1 beauty at Lin Qiu University. Lam Qiu stays completely indifferent to this boring gossip. So what if she is #1, and yet nobody is helping her carry her luggage? He quietly compares Lam Van Hien with Tan Chan Chan, judging their looks before reaching a conclusion. She looks decent, but compared to his absolute goddess Tan Chan Chan, she still falls way short. Feeling a bit disappointed, Lam Van Hien tells herself to let it go since they are newcomers who do not know her yet. Reaching the dorm, she proudly announces her arrival as their senior. Lam Van Hien turns to the two juniors, saying she needs to speak with the manager first. Suddenly, a pair of yellow underwear flies through the air as someone screams that they dropped it. Hearing the shout, Truong Tam completely freezes. The fabric lands smack on Truong Tam's face. He struggles, calling out to Lam Qiu that something has completely blocked his vision. Truong Tam is deeply embarrassed upon realizing what it is, while Lam Van Hien awkwardly grabs it. She promises to return it to the owners, thanking both juniors for their help today. Truong Tam realizes a profound truth: the girls' dorm is indeed a highly dangerous place. Lam Qiu silently agrees. A day later, the students are all seated neatly for their first class. Half asleep, Lam Qiu realizes their first class is actually spirit beast studies. The country's highly renowned spirit beast expert, Professor Truong Tiangu, stands proudly at the podium to welcome the freshmen. The students gasp in awe. Is that really the legendary scholar Professor Truong? Lin Qiu University actually managed to recruit him as a teacher, leaving Lam Qiu thinking he finds it hilarious who could possibly understand spirit beasts better than him in this entire world. Well, except for 9527. Suddenly, he spots something highly suspicious in his textbook. Wait, why is this written incorrectly? And this part too? Suddenly, a voice calls out to him. Lam Qiu is deeply focused, busy scribbling corrections all over his textbook. Hearing the voice so close to him, he instinctively looks up. Professor Truong asks what he is writing and requests to see the book. Lam Qiu obediently hands it over, secretly shocked that the professor snuck up on him without him even noticing. As the professor examines Lam Qiu's scribbles, his eyes suddenly widen with absolute shock. He quickly asks a student sitting right in front of Lam Qiu to move. Professor Truong asks what this classmate's name is. Lam Qiu politely replies that his name is Lam Qiu. Pointing to a cat-like beast in the book, Professor Truong notes that Lam Qiu claimed it is not nocturnal. What proof does Lam Qiu have for this claim? Lam Qiu explains that the creature actually has terrible night vision, which is easy to verify with any live specimen. But Professor Truong argues that they have already thoroughly studied many of these spirit cats, and at night they remain incredibly active and powerful. Lam Qiu points out that is purely because of their exceptional hearing, which is extremely easy to test. The entire class is stunned as the famous professor actually asking Lam Qiu for advice. Professor Truong is about to ask about the black pig next. Suddenly, a blonde student wearing a headband speaks up, reminding the professor that they are still in class. Without any hesitation, Professor Truong frankly admits that the textbook has issues and definitely needs to be revised. He needs to discuss these details with Lam Qiu first, telling the rest to study on their own. Aoduang-san excitedly speaks up. Lam Qiu? You are amazing! You actually got the professor to change the textbook on day 1. Meanwhile, several jealous classmates grumble, wondering what stunt Lam Qiu is trying to pull. Professor Truong quickly waves them off, telling everyone to leave and stop bothering him. Quite a few students look pretty annoyed about it. Lam Qiu asks if there is really any need to rush like this. The professor looks deadly serious, warning him this is no joke. He warns that every single mistake they teach could cost countless lives in Lin Qiu, and that would be entirely on them. Lam Thu cannot help but deeply admire the professor's sheer humility and dedication. But Professor Truong immediately pivots. It is time to continue advanced math. Lam Thu is secretly thrilled to see a seat right next to his goddess. But Awakens swoops in, grabbing his arm to block him. Oh, you can already feel the drama brewing. She admires him openly, calling him an unexpected genius, since advanced math is not her strong suit. She begs him to sit together and teach her. Dragged over to her desk, Lam Thu awkwardly stammers that he really should go sit with Chan Chan. But Tan Chan Chan coldly cuts him off, telling him to just sit there. Awakens immediately showers him with praise, calling him incredibly cool. She is genuinely amazed that he can remember everything. Lam Thu sweats nervously. His photographic memory is a cheat, but Tan Chan Chan's piercing gaze is terrifying. He hides behind his textbook, screaming internally that his goddess is genuinely angry now. Meanwhile, Awakens plays completely innocent, asking what is wrong. Later, they head over to the Lin Vo training grounds. Lam Thu is incredibly excited to finally start their martial arts training. Trung Tum gossips that their instructor will probably be some massive, rugged brute of a man. But Lam Thu has other worries, namely the persistent shadow following him around. He flatly asks Awakens why she has been staring at him all day. She calmly replies that she just wants his help with studying, no harm in that, right? Trying to stay polite, Lam Thu says it is fine, but he is crying a river inside. Glancing at his goddess, he knows that if this clinginess continues, he is as good as dead. Just then, their stunning and curvy new female instructor arrives with a sweet smile. She cheerfully welcomes them back. The beautiful, sharp-looking cat girl announces she will be handling their martial arts class this semester. Lam Thu instantly recognizes her as Teacher Han, while Truong Tam cannot help but marvel at how gorgeous their new coach is. Teacher Han appreciates the sweet-talking, but quickly moves on to her usual rules. First, everyone must show off their abilities. Lam Thu panics, imagining how everyone will laugh if he transforms into a harmless little rabbit. Does he seriously have to transform into a bunny in front of everyone? Teacher Han calls up the very first student, and it is Tan Chan Chan. Tan Chan Chan unleashes crackling lightning, followed by Awakens' blazing fire, leaving the teacher very impressed. Next up is Lam Thu, who immediately begins begging for mercy. He nervously asks the coach if he can sit this one out, since he has nothing cool to show. He is dying inside because transforming into a cute bunny in front of everyone is just too humiliating. But Teacher Han smiles, asking if it is just a simple white rabbit transformation. She reassures him no one will laugh, forcing Lam Thu to finally give up and accept his fate. He silently activates his moon rabbit transformation. Lam Thu tries his absolute best to strike a cool, badass pose. While the guys are stunned by his surprisingly intense aura, the girls are completely captivated by his look. Everyone is left wondering if this is really his beast transformation. The girls squeal in excitement, gushing about how he is a real rabbit, how cute he is, and how they desperately want to touch his ears. Lam Thu leaps up, landing perfectly on the training ground as a cloud of dust scatters. His serious expression is both adorable and tough, instantly hitting the sweet spot for so many of the watching girls. Tan Chan Tran smiles with pride, noticing that Lam Thu's beast form looks even cooler than last time. Awakens is loving what she sees, silently thanking her grandfather. Thank you for finding me such a handsome and dashing little martial uncle. Teacher Han clears her throat, calling for the next person. Tuma VM thinks to herself that if this keeps up, the girls might actually faint from excitement. Meanwhile, a blonde guy is thoroughly annoyed watching Lam Thu hog all the attention from the girls. He mutters to himself, telling the ladies to watch him instead. He shouts out that Tio Jiang's beast form is way cooler than that rabbit, but unfortunately girls just do not appreciate it. He bluntly adds with a sigh how utterly disappointing. Exactly trying to compete with Lam Thu is just asking for humiliation, he sneers, directing his bitter frustration at him. Lam Thu can only sigh, wondering why the guy is glaring at him like it is his fault. Teacher Han raises her voice, announcing that she now knows everyone's special abilities. Moving forward, she will design a personalized, highly professional training program tailored specifically to each student's unique abilities. But right now, to build up their basic physical stamina, everyone needs to start running laps. Many students look surprised as they begin running laps. Teacher, military training is already over. Why are you making us run again? How many laps do we run? They ask as Teacher Han holds up a finger and someone guesses just one. She signals no, 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 explaining it is non-stop running, leaving the students in absolute disbelief. Glancing over at Lam Thu, she adds that once their physical stats reach gold tier, they can stop running. Lam Thu smirks, realizing this is a special hint aimed directly at him. Standing right next to him, the blonde guy notices Lam Thu is not moving and looks utterly confused. Why are you not running, Lam Thu? He asks. But Lam Thu simply counters. Why should I? The guy points at him, reminding him that the teacher said only gold tier students are exempt from running. Lam Thu calmly shrugs. How do you know I have not reached it yet? Teacher Han waves him over, announcing that she will personally test Lam Thu's physical limits. The blonde guy assumes Lam Thu is just bluffing, scoffing to himself in amusement. Go ahead and show off. Let us see how embarrassing your reality check is going to be. Standing face to face, Lam Thu politely asks Teacher Han to pardon his rudeness. She extends her hand, initiating a handshake to test Lam Thu's true physical strength. Lam Thu cannot help but marvel at how incredibly soft it feels, reminding himself not to get distracted. The two keep their firm grip locked for a tense moment. She is secretly impressed, wondering how this kid has such raw power without a strength-based awakening. They release their grip, and she confirms his stats are indeed gold tier, meaning he does not have to run. The blonde guy is completely dumbfounded, unable to believe it. This guy's actual physical stats have truly reached the legendary gold tier. She quickly snaps at the dazed blonde student, asking what he is staring at, and telling him to get back to running. She turns back to ask Lam Thu a question. By the way, Lam Thu, do you know about the Ling Wu martial arts tournament happening in 2 months? The championship rewards are absolutely massive, including a personal platinum spiritual bead, alongside a cash prize of 5 million. Lam Thu nods, mentioning that Vice Principal Lu Tran has already secured a spot for him. She puffs her cheeks, having planned to recommend him. She did not expect Vice Principal Lu to notice him so early, so she will stay out of it. But there is another thing. Someone else in our class is also participating in this tournament. Lam Thu instinctively asks who that other person could be. Teacher Han reveals it is Truong Tam, leaving Lam Thu totally confused about why him. Teacher Han explains that because his blessing buff boosts all stats by 10%, he makes the perfect support player. This makes Lam Thu wonder, does this spiritual martial arts tournament actually feature a team battle? He asks Teacher Han to explain how the national tournament actually works. Teacher Han gives him a playful scolding, since Vice Principal Luke already handpicked him. How can he still know absolutely nothing about the tournament? Turns out that stubborn old man did not even mention a single word to her as the team leader. She then breaks down the entire structure of the tournament for Lam Thu. Each team has 7 players facing off in 6 one-on-one matches and 1 5-on-5 team battle. Teams are also allowed to bring a set number of substitute players. Lam Thu quickly points out that Truong Tam's current rank might be way too low. Teacher Han gently reassures him that the other academy representatives are at least gold rank. During the intense 5-on-5 battle, a support's quick buff can easily decide the winner in under 2 minutes. Just then, Truong Tam jogs back over and asks about the whole situation. He wants to know exactly how long Truong Tam's powerful buff can last. Teacher Han replies that she just tested it, and it lasts about 2 minutes. When both teams are evenly matched, those crucial 2 minutes will absolutely decide the victory. Lam Thu figures that any team able to match them must be capital spiritual martial arts. But Teacher Han shakes her head. Her goal this time is actually second place. Lam Thu cannot understand why they would just accept defeat against this opponent so easily. Teacher Han warns him that their top player Kwang Ho awakened a rare destruction type attribute. He is currently a 4th-year student sitting at Platinum 3-star rank. And honestly, who can blame him hearing this? Lam Thu tenses up because a Platinum 3-star opponent is no joke. Teacher Han openly admires his raw talent, which is exactly why she calls him an absolute genius. Right now, Kwang Ho is the undisputed #1 across Huaxia Spiritual Martial Arts University. Suddenly, Teacher Han steps close and gently pats Lam Thu on the head. She confesses she completely understands the true reason why Vice Principal Luke put him in this tournament. It is not about winning matches, but letting him experience the world and expand his horizons. His true stage will be the future tournaments, once he has grown much stronger. Stroking his soft hair brings her a wave of satisfaction, thinking he feels just like a cute little rabbit. Of course, she only keeps those soft thoughts to herself. Lam Thu realizes his rank is still silver, and even his physical stats only reach gold level. The main powerhouses of Shanghai spiritual martial arts have likely peaked at gold, or even reached platinum. Or at the very least, they sit at peak gold rank. As his exhausted classmates finally jog back, Lam Thu silently resolves to use these next 2 months to level up. Teacher Han addresses the tired students, explaining the method behind her madness. They are probably wondering why their coach made them run all those grueling laps. Building physical endurance is the only way to minimize the harsh side effects. Side effects caused by absorbing powerful spiritual beads. With that, she wraps up the class since they are officially out of time for today. But she does not forget to instruct the 2 chosen tournament representatives. She orders Lam Thu and Truong Tam to meet her at the training grounds tonight. This leaves them both wondering what exactly their coach has planned for them later. Lam Thu guesses this might have something to do with the upcoming Spiritual Martial Arts Conference. Suddenly someone calls out, "Hey, you two a trio led by Tran Long. A Platinum 1-star Strength-type Awakener is approaching." He demands to know why Lin Qiu and his friend are hanging out in their private training room. Lin Venhian, one of the three, instantly recognizes the duo and speaks up. What are you two freshmen doing here instead of attending your self-study class tonight? Lin Qiu honestly explains that their instructor sent them here while thinking what a small world this is. Lin Venhian presses, further asking if their instructor is the lead coach Han Quan. Lin Qiu confirms it is. Hearing this, Tran Long tells them that if their coach sent them, they should introduce themselves first. I am Tran Long, the captain of this group, and a Platinum 1-star Strength-type Awakener. Lin Venhian introduces himself next, stating he is a Gold 9-star Shadow-type Awakener. On their side, Lin Qiu shares that he is a Silver 4-star Beast Transformation type. Trung Tam Ten introduces himself as a Silver 2-star Healer-type Awakener. Hearing this, Tran Long instantly looks down on these two underclassmen. Just Silver tier. He wonders how these two kids could possibly impress their elite coach. Coach Han Quan steps in right on cue, suggesting a quick spar to find out. Lin Qiu feels a bit anxious about sparring with gold ranks, wondering if the coach is trying to get him killed. But Coach Han Quan seems to have absolute faith in her two students. She tells Trung Tam that as a support he does not need to fight, just show off his skills. Trung Tam fires up his energy, casting his Glory Blessing skill. The blessing lands on Lin Venhian, making her entire body suddenly heat up. As her body warms up, she can feel her power rapidly surging. Seeing the incredible effect of Trung Tam's skill, Tran Long shifts his attitude, feeling the massive power boost. This is amazing. We absolutely must have this kid. Lin Qiu admits he is a bit jealous, realizing that healers are always popular everywhere. Tran Long then turns to Lin Qiu, suggesting he have a quick match with Dai Tiu. He has the lowest rank here, but he is our top reserve. He is a Gold 5-star Beast type, so Lin Qiu needs to use his strongest form or suffer a brutal defeat. Lin Qiu feels like Dai Tiu's warning is completely unnecessary. Yeah, with a massive gap like that, he does not need a reminder. Without wasting words, Lin Qiu transforms, leaps into the air, and unleashes a lightning-fast kick, challenging him to go all out. Giving his opponent no room to breathe, he drops to the ground and uses his rabbit leg thrust to boost his strikes. Taking another direct hit from Lin Qiu, Dai Tiu is utterly shocked that a Silver 4-star can move like this. But Dai Tiu has no time to think, as Lin Qiu instantly closes the distance again. Lin Qiu raises his hand, slamming Dai Tiu down hard. Dai Tiu crashes down with a massive explosive impact. Tran Long's group is speechless. How is a Silver 4-star completely dominating him? Yet despite the heavy impact, Dai Tiu stands right back up without a single scratch. He admits he underestimated the kid, but warns that if this is all he has, he should just surrender. Lin Qiu quickly analyzes his opponent, noting his insane defense. His fast attacks did absolutely zero damage to the guy. Warning that he won't hold back anymore, Dai Tiu activates his Pangolin Beast transformation. Dai Tiu's eyes glow blood red as sharp scales grow on his back. But this monstrous form just makes some of the watching classmates laugh at how ugly he looks. Annoyed, Dai Tiu tells them to shut up and winds up a massive punch ready to get serious. Leaping into the air, Dai Tiu and Lin Qiu trade brutal fist strikes. His face bruised from the impact, Lin Qiu realizes this guy's defense is simply too tough to break. But get this, he is about to bring out his ultimate trump card. Lin Qiu leaps back to create distance, clasping his hands to gather his crackling lightning power. With Palm Lightning active, a sphere of crackling electricity is ready for release. Taking a hard hit, Dai Tiu groans as his mind starts racing. Even with his beast armor fully defending him, this kid still managed to paralyze his defenses. Lin Qiu simply smirks, saying this is only the beginning. Seizing the opportunity, Lin Qiu instantly strikes. Dai Tiu swings a massive fist to counter, but the young fighter swiftly dodges out of harm's way. He unleashes a powerful blast of energy straight toward Dai Tiu. On the sidelines, two spectators analyze the match, noting that neither warrior can move a single inch right now. The other spectator simply nods in agreement. Back to the battle, Dai Tiu snaps at Lin Qiu, asking if the brat is just playing games with him. Spotting an opening, he unleashes his spirit skill, the Rolling Flesh Chariot, straight at Lin Qiu. The attack is simply too fast. Caught off guard, Lin Qiu takes a direct hit and coughs up blood. Wang Hui rushes over in a panic, crying out that he is spitting blood. She immediately begins healing him, but having her press so close leaves Lin Qiu blushing red with embarrassment. Their instructor steps in, telling them not to worry and to let the match continue without any interruption. Lin Qiu grunts, admitting he got careless by thinking he could easily kite his opponent around. Suddenly, a massive surge of power comes flying straight at him. Barely dodging in time, Lin Qiu realizes things are getting dangerous. Ready to get serious, Lin Qiu summons his Moon Rabbit Space, activating his powerful Moon Lion form now. An intense aura envelops Lin Qiu as he smirks. All his attributes just boosted by 120%. Both the instructor and Wang Hui stare in absolute awe. He looks so cool, but please do not hurt the bunny. Lin Qiu notes that his waning moon transformation doesn't give a huge boost to his raw physical strength, but 120% is more than enough. Wasting no time, he charges straight toward Lin Qiu, telling him to get ready. With one powerful strike, he forces Lin Qiu to cough up blood. Slammed to the ground, Lin Qiu sits there in disbelief, realizing he actually lost. He actually lost to a kid who is only a silver 4-star. Suddenly, a friendly hand reaches down as Lin Qiu kindly asks if he is all right. Looking up, Lin Qiu can't help but smile, thinking this freshman is quite something. Lin Qiu takes Lin Qiu's hand and pulls himself up, openly admitting his defeat. He admits the kid is incredibly formidable, noting that his raw speed and power are completely beyond any normal silver 4-star. Lin Qiu humbly replies that if his senior had held out a bit longer, the outcome might be different. Wang Hui rushes over to Lin Qiu, asking him with deep concern if he is all right. Seeing this, Lin Qiu jokingly complains that his own injuries are actually much worse. Wang Hui snaps back, saying she wants to heal Lin Qiu first, and it is none of his business. Gently holding Lin Qiu's hand, she channels her healing magic into him while speaking soft words. She tells him to hold on, promising to make him feel better soon. Hang on, she says, but he insists he is totally fine. The instructor speaks up, noting that everyone now has a clear understanding of Lin Qiu's true strength. He asks the crowd if anyone still has any objections. A team member steps forward to shake his hand, admitting that a silver 4-star who can defeat a gold 5-star definitely deserves a spot on their squad. He welcomes Lin Qiu to the team. Lin Qiu silently reflects, if a gold 5-star was this tough, a platinum rank will be a true nightmare. Unless he can somehow transform under a full moon, he stands absolutely no chance against someone as powerful as Tran Long. The teacher presents the prize and tells Lin Qiu that this is his reward for winning the match. Then she leans in close and says if he ever wants to grow even stronger, he can find her anytime, and she will personally give him some special training. Lin Qiu politely declines right away, thanking her, but saying he probably will not need it. The very next day, Lin Qiu is back in his room training his strength. While working out, he grumbles that silver-grade spirit orbs are too weak to give him any real boost. So he decides to feed them to his dragon egg, anything to help it hatch. Suddenly his phone rings and the voice on the other end calls out to him as boss. Second brother bought him a bunch of gold-grade spirit orbs and wants him to pick them up. Lin Qiu asks, aren't you going? The guy replies that he has got some business since he finally got a rare day off. He wants to spend some romantic time with his girl, prompting Lin Qiu to tease him for choosing girls over friends. Lin Qiu starts imagining his own beautiful goddess, feeding him, wondering when he will finally get a chance with her. Shaking off those wild thoughts, he grabs his jacket, gets out of bed, and tells himself to focus. Important business comes first, so his main priority right now is going to retrieve those valuable spirit orbs. The guy who shook hands with Lin Qiu earlier stands aside to make a quick phone call. He tells Uncle Wang the target is here, asking if they should strike. The voice warns him not to strike near the Shanghai Lin Vo School since there are too many experts. The scene shifts to Lin Qiu meeting up with Trung Yi. Trung Yi hands over a heavy box, explaining that there are over 100 gold-grade spirit orbs inside. He also got 3 platinum-grade ones, though there is still absolutely no news on the space and lightning types. Lin Qiu is impressed, thanking his second brother for gathering so many valuable orbs in just 1 week. Trung Yi smiles and promises to keep looking for the remaining ones. Lin Qiu raises his hand, thanking his second brother. As he turns to leave, he spots some suspicious figures trailing him and realizes his gut feeling was spot on. He wonders why these guys have been secretly stalking him all the way from the school grounds. Snapping out of his thoughts, he grabs his phone and tells Fatty to quickly check his WeChat messages. Glancing back at the sketchy crowd, he smirks and decides he wants to see what they are actually planning. One of the stalkers immediately calls Uncle Wang, reporting that their target has just headed down a narrow alley. After receiving the order to strike a group of thugs, suddenly jumps out and blocks his path. Lin Qiu playfully asks if they are planning to rob his money or his handsome looks. He jokes that he is completely broke, so if they want his body, they should at least be gentle. The thugs groan in total disgust at his words before suddenly snatching the heavy box from his hands. They quickly throw a dark bag over his head and lift him up, leaving him shouting in mock panic. He yells, asking where they are taking him on this crazy kidnapping. Shortly after, Lin Qiu finds himself held captive between 2 massive muscular thugs with Uncle Wang himself standing right beside them. The old man instructs his loyal subordinates to step back outside and keep a close watch. He orders them to report back immediately if anything suspicious happens. With that settled, he pulls the black bag off Lin Qiu and gloats that the kid has finally fallen into his trap. Without showing even a shred of fear, Lin Qiu just casually greets Uncle Wang. He asks if young Master Tong has any new guidance for him. Uncle Wang snorts and warns the kid that there is absolutely no way he can escape this place. Lin Qiu quietly laughs to himself, wondering if the old man honestly thinks he could ever catch him. He is only playing along to see what kind of game they are trying to pull. Young Master Tong asks why a capable guy like brother Lam Thu is running away. He wonders if his capable friend has any interest in partnering up. Lam Thu steps closer, teasingly asking why they want to collaborate, when he thought this was a straight-up kidnapping. Young Master Tong points out that Lam Thu is an absolute genius at stone betting, so why not team up for a 50-50 split? Lam Thu counters asking why doing the stone opening on his own wouldn't be much better. That way, all the profit goes straight into his own pocket. This completely ticks off Tong, who warns Lam Thu to look at his current situation, because this is definitely not a negotiation. He is offering a lifeline, so he better not push his luck. Right on cue, Wang Ba unleashes his massive aura, making the young man shiver slightly. He never expected this old man to actually be a platinum-level powerhouse. Tong sneers aggressively, bringing up the 500 million that Lam Thu took from him last time. That stunt got him yelled at by his dad, so he wants it all back. Lam Thu calmly replies that the cash is with Truong Nhi, so Tong can go take it from him if he has the guts. Meanwhile, he silently prays Truong Tam acts smart. He needs to bring some powerful masters fast, or else he cannot hold out much longer. But out of nowhere, a massive explosion rocks the building, and Tan Chan Chan bursts in, calling his name. Lam Thu is shocked to see her instantly panicking, because this place is extremely dangerous. Why would Truong Tam bring Chan Chan here? Chan Chan rushes forward and tightly hugs Lam Thu, asking if he is hurt. She explains that Truong Tam told her he was in serious trouble, prompting a completely stunned Lam Thu to softly say he is fine. Flushing a bright red, she sighs in relief and admits that she was absolutely terrified for his safety just a moment ago. Lam Thu blushes too, touched that she actually cares this much. Leaning gently against her, he apologizes and promises he won't make her worry like this ever again. She stammers back, asking who would actually care. Seeing them acting so intimate makes Tong explode with absolute rage, ordering Wang Ba to immediately destroy this arrogant brat. Wang Ba quickly complies with a respectful nod. But wait, Wang Ba suddenly realizes he cannot channel any power, leaving him completely baffled. Seeing his bodyguard freeze, Tong screams at Lam Thu, demanding to know what he did. Lam Thu quickly denies it as an unfamiliar voice calls out. Wang Ba starts sweating bullets, instantly recognizing the legendary martial master Ao Duong Trak. The martial master spots the young couple flirting and sighs, wondering why on earth he was in such a rush. He genuinely thought it was a life-threatening emergency, but instead he gets stuffed with sweet couple energy. Still, he chuckles, noting the kid definitely has his youthful charm. Blushing, Chan Chan quickly tells Lam Thu not to misinterpret things because she didn't mean it that way. Suddenly, Lam Thu grabs her hand and pulls her close. He confesses that he has always liked her, softly asking if she would officially become his girlfriend. Before she can reply, an incredibly jealous Tong screams that they are now mortal enemies. He violently grabs a nearby chair and hurls it at Lam Thu. But Chan Chan swiftly kicks the chair right back into his face, sending him crashing backward. Dusting herself off, she complains about his terrible timing and lack of manners. Lam Thu chuckles, suggesting they resume their confession, to which she shyly agrees. Holding her hand, he clears his throat and repeats his proposal to be his girlfriend. She softly nods in agreement, leaving Lam Thu absolutely overjoyed. He gently kisses her soft hair now. Watching this unfold, a completely heartbroken Tong cries out, asking how she could treat him like this. Chan Chan glares right at him and warns him never to call her that again. Lam Thu gently pats her head, telling her to stay calm and let him handle this trash. He slowly walks over to Tong Cha, sits right in front of him, and suggests they have a little chat. Tong Ka snarls that he has nothing to say, admitting his defeat and telling Lam Thu to just kill him. Lam Thu smiles, explaining that he has no interest in taking his life. Instead, he reaches into the guy's pocket, grabs his phone, and says all he really wants is cash. Without wasting a second, he immediately dials a number on the screen. Panicking, Tong Ka demands to know what he is planning to do. The call connects, and a voice instantly screams through the speaker, asking if Tong Cha has lost his mind. Doesn't he know his father is extremely busy right now? He gets exactly 30 seconds to explain himself, or he can forget about ever coming back home. Tong Ka instantly knows it is his angry father. Lam Thu speaks directly into the phone, calmly announcing that Mr. Tong's son has been kidnapped, and if he wants him alive, he needs to transfer 1 billion right away. With silence on the other end, Chan Chan whispers, asking if that amount is a little too high. He pulls her close by the waist, whispering back that this money is actually for her bride price, so it's cheap. Blushing, Chan Chan turns her head away, muttering that she only agreed to date, not marry him. The phone finally barks back, offering 1 million, and saying his son is worth no more. If they do not accept, they can just kill him, and he will simply make another heir. Hearing his father say that, Tong Cha breaks down crying. Lam Thu chuckles, telling him not to rush as they can still negotiate the final price. He tells Old Master Tong that nobody bargains like him, setting his new limit at 900 million. The cold reply is instant, offering 2 million and not a penny more. Suddenly, Ao Duong Trak snatches the phone right out of Lam Thu's hand to take over. He greets him casually, identifying himself as Ao Duong Trak. The man on the other end is Tong Kien, the powerful chairman of the Hoi Dong Group. Recognizing the voice, he immediately pays his respects to Senior Ao Duong. Ao Duong calmly explains that the man's son has kidnapped his disciple. While the kid is not hurt, the act itself is a massive insult to his pride and reputation. Sweating in absolute terror, Tong Kien apologizes, blaming himself for failing to raise his son properly. He promises to break his unfilial son's legs the second he gets back, begging for forgiveness. He offers 2 billion as compensation, hoping the senior will calm his anger. Ao Duong accepts the deal, but issues a final warning that if this ever happens again, the entire Hoi Dong Group will cease to exist. Tong Kien desperately agrees, promising to discipline his son and make sure he never steps out of line. As the call ends, Lam Thu quickly addresses his master. Does master mean to have all of that money transferred to my account? Ao Duong Trak nods, telling him that such wealth is useless to him, but warns Lam Thu to keep something in mind. Once he reaches a certain level of power, worldly wealth like money will no longer hold any real value to him. Lam Thu scratches his head with a grin and thanks his master. He understands he needs to build his own strength first, but points out that since he has not reached that level yet, cash is pretty useful. Suddenly, Lam Thu's phone buzzes with a bank notification confirming a massive transfer of 2 billion into his account. His eyes light up, cheering that the money is finally in his hands. Behind him, Tong Cha weeps, bitterly sobbing that 2 billion is completely gone. He keeps crying, knowing his father will never forgive him for losing that much money. Just then, Lam Thu tosses a single gold coin onto the ground right in front of Tong Cha. He tells him it is a real shame not to use that pathetic face to beg under some bridge. Wang Ba helps Tong Ka up, warning Lam Thu to leave a way out for others, since they will definitely meet again someday. Lam Thu shoots back, asking if they actually thought about that when they tied him up and dragged him here. Wang Ba snaps at him. Lam Thu just smiles and tells him to calm down first, despite his obvious anger. Besides looking at his beat-up young master, is he really sure he still wants to pick a fight? Knowing they are outmatched, Wang Ba and Tong Cha quickly turn around and make their quiet exit. Seeing them leave, Ao Duong Trak suggests they head back too and offers to teleport them home. But Lam Thu stops him, wanting to double-check if his precious spirit beads are safely accounted for. Ao Duong Trak frowns, asking why on earth he did not keep such valuable treasures in his storage space. Lam Thu quickly replies that it is not like he has a choice. His storage ring holds a dragon egg that eats spirit beads like snacks, making it a complete bottomless pit. Ao Duong Trak gasps a dragon egg. He urges Lam Thu that if he knows it is a dragon egg, he should hatch it instead of hoarding these spirit beads. Lam Thu complains that these few beads would not even tickle the egg, let alone hatch it. Hatching it requires at least 2 supreme-tier spirit beads. And humanity has not managed to defeat a supreme-tier beast in decades. Nobody in their right mind would waste such legendary power just to hatch a single beast egg. Ao Duong Trak crosses his arms, wondering if there is absolutely no other alternative. Lam Thu admits he could feed it his own energy, but that process would take forever. His master then asks if he has ever considered using alternative energy sources instead. The realization hits Lam Thu like a truck, making him wonder why he never thought of that before. He was too narrow-minded, thinking only of massive spiritual power to hatch the egg. But there are no limits on the energy type. Wind power, electricity, or even nuclear energy. He should let this greedy little thing try them all. Ao Duong Trak smiles, asking if he wants to run a quick test. Excited, Lam Thu asks how they should test it. Ao Duong Trak suggests that he should use some of his lightning skills to shock the egg and see, channeling his powers. Lam Thu admits he is more than ready to give it a shot. He blasts the egg with a sudden jolt of electricity, and they both cheer as it actually works. Lam Thu says he wants to try testing other types of energy next. But since he is not sure if the egg can safely absorb everything, he asks his master to set up a protective spatial barrier around them. This will prevent any volatile energy from blowing up in their faces if things go wrong. Ao Duong Trak laughs it off, telling the kid to go all out without any worries. He pulls a high-grade bomb from his pocket, glad that his recent loot is finally coming in handy. Grinning, he tells his master that he is ready. With a quick snap of his fingers, the timer hits 0 just as the spatial barrier locks in place. Seeing the egg devour the entire explosion, Lam Thu laughs that this greedy thing can eat anything, giving him endless ways to hatch it. Watching the egg absorb the blast, Ao Duong Trak warns Lam Thu. They have no idea if this egg can actually handle the immense energy of a nuclear bomb. If it fails to absorb it, it could trigger a massive catastrophe. So they should definitely abandon this dangerous method for now. Lam Thu wears a slightly dangerous smile, noting that a nuclear bomb would definitely hatch the little guy much faster. He quickly turns back to his master with an innocent grin, telling him not to worry since he was obviously only joking around. Trek slips into his battle stance, asking if Tu is ready. Forget about the dragon syndrome for now, because the Spirit Martial Tournament starts in just 2 months. He laughs proud that his disciple has the exact same mindset as him. Tu quickly steps back, asking his master to guide him. The two rush into their sparring match, but despite his best efforts, Tu still takes quite a beating from Trek. Once the intense training ends, they head back home. Before heading inside, Trek tells him to end today's training here and get some rest after absorbing his spirit pearl. Tu agrees and returns to his room, realizing his master's special training is far more brutal than he originally expected. Suddenly, Chun pops up to tell Tu that it is time for dinner. Opening the door, she steps inside and wonders if Tu is still in here. Seeing Tu rushes over and asks what brings her all the way here. He tells her to just call him next time so he can pick her up. But a sudden gust of wind blows her skirt up. Tu panics and waves his hands, claiming he did not see a single thing. He steps closer and tells her not to worry because she looks beautiful, then suggests they go grab some dinner together. Chun huffs in embarrassment, but Tu just grabs her hand and pulls her along. Along the way, Chun blushes and tells Tu to let go since everyone is staring at them. It is fine, Tu casually shrugs. A passing student literally weeps, crying out that the first-year goddess actually has a boyfriend now. Walking hand in hand, Chun cannot help but feel incredibly shy as a realization hits her. Oh right, they really are officially a couple now. Just then, San spots the couple and calls out to her martial uncle. Tu spots her and immediately teases her, asking if this is his beloved eldest niece. He proudly introduces Chun, telling his niece to greet her new martial aunt. Sang silently fumes, cursing Tu in her mind. She's incredibly annoyed that he is forcing her to call her main rival his martial aunt. On the other hand, Chun is absolutely loving this. Having her biggest rival suddenly forced to treat her as an aunt feels like an absolute victory for her. Despite San glaring daggers at her, Chun playfully scolds Tu for talking nonsense. She gently suggests that since they are classmates, they should all eat dinner together. Of course, our clueless protagonist completely ruins the mood with a stupid question. Why is your temper suddenly so bad, niece? Both girls silently curse the dense blockhead, wondering how he can be so completely blind to romance. Later, under a crescent moon, Tu holds Chun's hand and mentions the tournament is only 2 months away. He explains that he must train hard every day to push past his limits. Our time together might be very limited. Chun smiles warmly, saying she completely understands his busy schedule. She encourages him to give his all, since his upcoming opponents are supposedly incredibly strong this year. Tu sighs, completely worried about the absolute monsters attending this tournament. Should he lose in the very first round, she quickly comforts him, saying there is no need to stress. Suddenly, she realizes this cheeky guy is only teasing her once again. She playfully chops him on the head, joking that he should not even bother coming back if he gets beaten. Tu catches her hand and pulls her into a warm hug, promising he will work hard. He softly tells her not to miss him too much while he is away competing. Chun blushes deeply. Tu smiles to himself, wondering why she has not pushed him away like she usually does. Tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, the lovely girl softly says she will miss him. Lin Qiu gets completely flustered by his crush's sweet gesture, thinking this is definitely the moment. He wraps his arms around her slender waist and lifts her high into the air. Qin Zhenzhen shyly protests, telling Lin Qiu to put her down. Lin Qiu firmly declares he will never let go. 2 months later, he and San head out to compete. San asks his boss if he is nervous about heading to the capital today for the Lingwu tournament. Lin Qiu casually replies that they are only substitutes anyway, so there is no reason to stress. In his head, he reflects on his past 2 months of training. He has reached the peak of silver rank, yet still cannot break through to gold. But perhaps it is because of his relentless daily training. In terms of physical strength, he is already on par with a 3-star gold rank awakened. Fortunately, System 9527 gifted him Tai Chi and Baguazhang. Over the past 2 months, he had also unlocked a massive pile of combat skills. From swords and staffs to Tai Chi, Baguazhang, and Wing Chun, he has mastered them all. Has System 9527 been watching too many martial arts movies lately? But thanks to all of this, his close combat abilities have improved tremendously. Just then, Chungmin and Qin Zhenzhen wave their hands to greet them from afar. San nudges his boss with his elbow, pointing out that they have visitors. Lin Qiu is surprised to see Zhenzhen here, running over to ask if she simply cannot bear to part with him. He is not even gone yet, and she is already missing him, which Qin Zhenzhen directly admits. Lin Qiu is thrilled, explaining that he knew the school gate would be packed with crowds later. He does not like chaotic crowds, which is why he did not tell her. Qin Zhenzhen simply smiles and pulls him into a sweet, lingering kiss before they slowly pull away. The young couple gazes passionately into each other's eyes, completely lost in their own world. Blushing, she cheers him on to win the championship, completely firing up Lin Qiu's fighting spirit. After sending him off with such a sweet gesture, Qin Zhenzhen shyly turns and walks away. Fueled by his crush's blessing kiss, Lin Qiu silently vows to give this tournament everything he has. Back at the gathering point for the competitors, Instructor Han addresses the students. He tells them that he hopes they will perform well in the upcoming martial arts tournament. They must not let the prestigious reputation of Shanghai Lingwu Academy fall behind. The students shout in unison, declaring they are ready for the Lingwu tournament. The team boards a plane to the capital, where eager reporters are already waiting to interview them. A reporter greets them, introducing herself as a journalist from the city television station. She asks if Shanghai Lingwu, having secured second place last year, is confident about their chances this time. Getting quite close to Lin Qiu, the reporter asks him directly. They ask if the team is planning to forfeit since they have 2 freshmen on the reserve list. A robust older man steps in to block the cameras, politely stating they cannot comment. Instructor Han advises them to ignore those comments so it won't affect their focus. Lin Qiu nods, promising he won't let it get to him. Just then a bus arrives as someone shouts that the other 7 teams have also landed. As people urge everyone to hurry, Lin Qiu wonders if these are the only schools competing. Instructor Han explains that hundreds of academies across the nation battled fiercely just to break through the qualifiers. Only 8 teams actually made the cut, leaving Lin Qiu completely stunned. 8 teams. An old man with a hair bun chimes in. That is correct, excluding Capital Lingwu and their very own Shanghai Lingwu. The 6 remaining teams on our competitor list are Yingtian Lingwu, Gusu Lingwu, Fengtian Lingwu, Shinmen Lingwu, Jinling Lingwu, and Zhengling Lingwu. None of these opponents will be easy, and Instructor Han nods in agreement. Exactly. We cannot afford to underestimate a single team out there. Let us head inside. We will discuss the specific details during our strategy meeting. Over at the Shanghai Lingwu conference room, the hosting area for Jingdu Lingwu, Instructor Han stands at the podium, explaining that the tournament rules are simple, featuring only 2 rounds of fierce competition. The first round is a points-based stage consisting of 6 individual matches and 1 team battle. Each individual victory scores 1 point, while the 5-on-5 team match is worth 5 points. In other words, we will face off against every single team to calculate the final points. The top 4 teams with the highest points will move on to the next stage, which basically means the finals. Instructor Han lays out the lineup, assigning Chenlong Lin Yunxuan and Zheng Hao to the one-on-ones. Wei Dongwutong and Lin Qiu are up next, with Lin Qiu comparing it to Tianji's horse racing strategy. If we play our cards right with the order, even a weaker team can steal some points. Instructor Han nods in agreement, but our main goal is not the one-on-one matches. It is the 5-on-5 showdown. For the 5-on-5, I will be fielding Chenlong Lin Yunxuan, Tian Shulin, Bianxin, and Zhang San. The sturdy old man notes that Chenlong is platinum tier, while Lin Yunxuan recently reached platinum as well. With both of them taking on the one-on-ones, securing those 2 points is a guaranteed deal. Sitting in the back, Lin Yunxuan mutters that is seriously impressive. Instructor Han continues, so as long as we win the 5-on-5, even if the other 4 lose, we still win 7-4. Chenlong confidently remarks that with 2 platinums and 2 9-star golds plus Zhang San's buffs, they basically have a 9 out of 10 chance of winning. Instructor Han holds up some papers here as the intel I gathered on our opponents take a look. The bun-haired elder speaks up, advising everyone to rest well. Get yourselves into peak condition and just do your absolute best out there. The meeting ends. Suddenly, someone slaps a stack of papers right onto Lin Qiu's head, making him spin around. It is Lin Yunxuan standing alongside a light blue-haired girl, waiting to talk to Lin Qiu. Tutu, tomorrow is your big debut, so give it your all, because Big Sis will be watching you fight. Their first opponent is Yingtian Lingwu, and defeating them seems like it will be an absolute piece of cake. Once everyone finally leaves, Lin Qiu is left all by himself in the quiet room. He summons his system, muttering that to make tomorrow go smoothly, 9527 really needs to step up today. The system announces a skill is awakening. Aircraft mastery grants absolute proficiency in operating all known modern aviation vehicles. Congratulations, host, on successfully acquiring the D-tier skill Aircraft Mastery. Lin Qiu is totally dumbfounded. What use is a piloting skill to me right now? He was hoping luck would be on his side to pull an aura-strengthening skill to reach gold tier, not this useless piloting ability. He grumbles to himself, to even use this skill, I actually need an entire airplane. Suddenly, a figure flashes before him as a blonde girl lunges forward to hug him tightly, crying out that she missed him to death. Lin Qiu furrows his brows. Shenxing, shouldn't you be with the Zhuke squad? Why are you in Jingdu? Shenxing explains that she is on a mission since the Zhuke squad was assigned to handle security for this Lingwu tournament. So your disciple begged to come along. Stifling a nosebleed with a blank face, Lin Qiu backs away, telling his disciple not to be so passionate. Standing right behind Shen Xing is a young man sporting an eye-catching, ridiculously spiky hairstyle. And honestly, Lin Qiu finds it absolutely impossible to ignore this guy. He is an incredibly rare destruction type awakened. Meet Kung Ho, a fourth-year student and a platinum 3-star powerhouse. Wearing a hostile look, he asks Tam Tin if this young guy is really her master. Tam Tin calmly introduces him. Master, this is your grandnephew Kung Ho. He is the top genius from Capital Linhwa Academy. Lin Qiu sizes him up. This is the top boss of the tournament. Tam Tin snaps at him, telling him to show some respect to his martial uncle. Kung Ho finds this absolutely ridiculous, calling a kid under 20 his martial uncle not happening. He unleashes his raw platinum 3-star pressure to test him. Tam Tin steps in to break the tension, but her favoritism is clearly lopsided. Cut it out, Kung Ho, you better not be disrespectful to my master. Choking back his anger, Kung Ho pulls his aura right back. He forces himself to greet martial uncle Lum, and they share a tense, polite handshake. But Lin Qiu can feel the sheer hatred this guy looks like he wants to kill him. Kung Ho only plays along because he wants to look good in front of Tam Tin. Lin Qiu waves his hand to dismiss him. You can leave now, my disciple, and I have things to discuss. Desperate to please Tam Tin, he quickly says goodbye to her before walking away. Watching him stomp off in a huff, Lin Qiu remarks that the guy has quite a temper. He asks her how she even met Kung Ho in the first place. She explains that their grandfathers are close friends, so they grew up playing together. She quickly shifts her focus back to Lin Qiu,
reminding him that she actually came all this way just to find him. She hands over a massive stack of papers filled with questions for her master to solve. Lamtha looks at the pile, completely stunned by the sheer amount. This stack is thicker than a giant encyclopedia of questions. With a sweet smile, she suggests they head over to the nearby cafe to get started.
Soon they settle down in a quiet coffee shop in the next building. And guess who else is chilling there, Trung Tam of all people? He naturally spots his boss and wonders if that is really Lin Qiu. He watches his leader getting super close to a beautiful girl, looking like they are on a date. Trung Tam sneaks up from behind, locks him in a headlock, and jokingly threatens to report him. A true defender of loyalty right here. Lin Qiu tells him to shut up, explaining he is just tutoring his disciple. Trung Tam stares at the gorgeous blonde, completely skeptical. Lin Qiu introduces him to her, explaining this is his close brother Trung Tam. Tam Tin politely greets him with a warm smile. She introduces herself as his disciple and the logistics leader of the Chutok squad. Trung Tam plays it cool, but inside he is absolutely losing his mind. He thinks his boss is a total god for having such a high-status disciple. Standing up, Lin Qiu tells his disciple they should wrap it up since he has a match tomorrow. Tam Tin understands and waves goodbye to them. She cheers him on and promises to find him right after his match is over. The next morning, the loudspeakers blare, announcing the live broadcast is finally starting. Leading their university squad, Tran Long stands up, urging everyone to get ready. Do not let Shanghai Linhwa lose face. Tran Long glances out of the corner of his eye, spotting the group led by Kwang Ho. Kwang Ho sneers Tran Long. Shanghai Lingu has lost to our capital Lingu 2 years in a row. You guys lost face a long time ago. Tran Long unleashes his aura to intimidate him, daring him to say that again, or get silenced for good. Kwang Ho mocks him, saying he is terrified, driving Tran Long into an absolute rage. The two face off in a fierce clash of pressure, neither backing down. As the lowest-ranked member of the team, Trung Tam takes the brunt of it, barely able to stand. Kwang Ho notices this and grows even more smug and arrogant. He mocks how Trung Tam is shaking, instantly sparking a deep, burning rage inside the young man. Right then, Lin Qiu steps in, casually asking nephew Kwang Ho why he is disrespecting his third uncle. The moment Kwang Ho sees Lin Qiu, all his arrogance completely vanishes. With absolutely no way out of this, the young man reluctantly speaks up. He politely greets him as Martial Uncle Lam, just as Tam Tin appears to investigate. She demands to know what is going on, glaring at Kwang Ho to see if he is causing trouble. Instantly behaving like an obedient puppy, he quickly denies doing anything wrong. Tam Tin warns him not to cause trouble during the tournament, telling them to settle grudges on stage. Then she turns to cheer on Lin Qiu, her master and third uncle, for their upcoming matches. Suddenly, a loud voice echoes, welcoming all the viewers watching the broadcast at home. She introduces herself as Lu Mong Ni, the main host, stating it is an honor to host this massive tournament. As the ultimate dream girl for countless guys, her presence instantly draws countless adoring eyes from the crowd. Mong Ni calmly makes the grand announcement. She calls for the opening ceremony to begin, inviting all the competitors onto the field. Entering first is the powerhouse team representing Capital Lingu. Kwang Ho sneers at Tran Long as the host welcomes the Shanghai Lingu team next. Leading his team with a serious face, Tran Long calls out to move while Lin Qiu asks Trung Tam if he is okay. Truong Tam hesitates for a second, stammering that he is completely fine. Soon, all the teams are gathered in the massive arena, taking their seats in the waiting section. Lin Qiu looks over at Truong Tam, who is clearly struggling to hide his intense anxiety. After all, it is Truong Tam's very first time competing in a major tournament, so feeling nervous is only natural. Just as he decides to offer some comfort, Tam Tin suddenly pops up, asking her master for some help. Caught off guard, Lin Qiu tries to politely turn her down. He tries telling her that he is currently busy, but she stubbornly clings to him, begging her master for just a few quick minutes of his time. Lin Qiu has to give in. Deciding he might as well get it over with, he listens as Meng Ni's voice echoes through the stadium. She announces the introduction of the judges and referees overseeing this highly anticipated competition. The first guest is the legendary Supreme Bak Duong, famously known as the ultimate shield of our nation. A man with slicked back blonde hair stands up. As a guest referee, this supreme-level powerhouse is a force to be reckoned with. Lin Qiu is quite surprised, never expecting a supreme powerhouse to actually oversee this tournament. Up until now, the only legendary master he has yet to meet in person is Tam Tin's grandfather, Tam Tai Sung. Meng Ni introduces the second judge, the country's only space attribute true martial master and principal of Shanghai, Lingwu Aoduang Trak. The third esteemed judge is Tu Do Ui, the principal of capital Lingwu. She then hands the floor over to Principal Tu Do Ui to deliver the opening address. Tu Do Ui takes the microphone, warmly greeting the crowd and introducing himself. He expresses his absolute joy in witnessing the growth of the new generation. I now declare the Lingwu tournament officially open. Brilliant fireworks erupt across the arena to signal the start, kicking off the opening match between capital Lingwu and Newgate. Zhang Hu clearly looks down on the young opponent facing him. Xiaoyang from Newgate silently curses his rotten luck for drawing Zhang Hu in the very first round. Situ Wei signals for the match to begin. Zhang Hu doesn't waste a single second before rushing forward, fueled by anger at Lin Qiu for ticking him off all day. This is his chance to finally unleash all that bottled-up frustration.
Xiao Yang quickly realizes he's being used as a punching bag, annoyed by how incredibly aggressive his opponent is today.
But even if he loses, he's determined to go down with some dignity.
Determined, the young man shoots a stream of fire directly at Zhang Hu. Zhang Hu, scoffing at such pathetic skills, simply reaches out and grabs the opponent's flames with his bare hand. He looks down and asks if it is game over or if he wants to keep going. The young man raises both hands and surrenders. Zhang Hu heads back to the stands, looking to get some recognition from Shen Xing. He wonders if Sister Xing even noticed his brilliant performance just now. But to his bitter disappointment, his goddess is sitting right next to Lin Qiu, deeply engrossed in a discussion. Seeing Shen Xing enjoy the conversation so much instantly sparks an unforgivable wave of jealousy inside Zhang Hu. Just you wait, Lin Qiu. Meanwhile, Lin Qiu remains totally oblivious, only noting a sudden surge of intense hostility. Zhang Shen suddenly calls out, pointing to an ice-type user who just forced a wood-type opponent to surrender. The referee announces Ling Shen of capital Lingwu as the winner. Lin Qiu realizes the capital team's strength is no joke, and Instructor Han is deeply concerned. He thought Zhang Hu was the only platinum rank fighter on the capital team. Who knew Ling Shen had already broken through as well? Lin Qiu asks if there is an issue. Instructor Han explains that they originally thought they had a fighting chance with Lin Yongshuan breaking through to platinum, but now it looks like an uphill battle. Lin Qiu also quietly realizes things are looking pretty grim. They really are far more formidable than anyone could have ever anticipated.
In round 3, Zhao Shiyu loses. The fourth round goes the same way, with Chen Zishuo losing, followed by another defeat in the fifth. Watching Newgate fall, Instructor Han sighs at their terrifying power. Aside from their 2 platinum ranks, the rest of the capital team are all peak gold tier. Meanwhile, Newgate only has 2 peak gold fighters in their entire lineup. Lin Qiu looks at the utterly crushed Newgate squad and groans inwardly. The capital team is totally bullying them. They could have at least saved them some face. Instead, they got completely swept. Next up is Shanghai versus Yingtian. But as soon as the two step onto the field, the brown-haired youth bows and forfeits right away. This sudden surrender catches Meng Ni completely off guard. Though annoyed by the quick match, Meng Ni announces the next pair. With Shanghai advancing, Lin Yunxuan is up next. According to the official records, both fighters are at peak gold tier. This is going to be epic. Yao Guoqing, a wind-type user, calculates his chances with confidence. Since he is not facing Captain Chen Long and her dark abilities, he definitely has a shot here. With that, the young man unleashes his whirlwind spiritual technique. Lam Van Hien pulls out a dagger just as the other guy hurls a massive whirlwind right at her. As the vortex closes in, her eyes instantly turn razor sharp. Her movement completely stuns him. She moves too fast, slipping behind his back in the blink of an eye. With her blade pressed against his neck, it is an instant checkmate. Du Kwuk-kun breaks into a cold sweat and asks when she managed to break through to platinum. Lam Van Hien does not offer an explanation, politely saying it was a good match. Round 2 goes to Shanghai Lin Vo. Now on to the next match. Watching her fight, Lam Thu is absolutely amazed by her shadow skills. That element is just way too broken, making shadow users practically invincible in same-tier matches. Meanwhile, Meng Ni's enthusiastic commentary continues to echo from the stage. Yingtian Lin Vo wins round 3. Lam Van Hien suddenly hugs Lam Thu, playfully asking how she did. Is your senior amazing or what? She is quite pleased to see his face turn red, softly cheering him on. You have to do your best, she says as the scoreboard updates. 2-2 for Shanghai and Yingtian. Lam Thu feels a bit discouraged. Since he only awakened a basic E-tier camouflage skill today, he feels he cannot help his team at all. Meng Ni announces the surprise update. Yingtian Lin Vo is ahead, making the current score 3-2. Now for the final one-on-one battle of the tournament, Yingtian Lin Vo sends out Huang Pham, their gold-tier lightning element awakener. But Shanghai Lin Vo surprises everyone by stepping forward with Lam Thu, a mere silver rank player. Meng Ni sounds incredibly confused, asking what is going on. Is Shanghai really sending out a silver rank, or are they just throwing the match away? Hands stuffed in his pockets, Lam Thu steps up, thinking it is finally his turn to shine. Spotting the backpack Lam Thu is carrying, Meng Ni becomes quite curious. From inside the bag, he pulls out a very strange-looking egg and claims it is his armor. Seeing the egg in his hands, both his opponent and the host are stunned. Meng Ni touches his armor egg with sparkling curiosity, noting its appearance is a bit unusual. Lam Thu agrees that she is not wrong, admitting his egg armor is indeed a bit unique. His opponent Huang Pham scoffs, asking what kind of armor that is when it is clearly just a literal egg. Bringing an egg to a serious martial arts tournament, Lam Thu retorts, asking if there is a rule against it. Left completely speechless by the logic, the opponent can only stare as Meng Ni steps in to stop the pointless bickering. Hold on, there are no rules against that. Let the match begin. Lam Thu gently pats the egg and whispers for it to be good, promising it a full meal very soon. Seeing this, Huang Pham becomes even more confident. It seems Shanghai Lin Vo has given up completely, throwing him an opponent that is basically a free win, which is honestly quite boring. So he tells Lam Thu to just surrender, not wanting to bully someone when the gap between them is so massive. Lam Thu agrees the gap is indeed huge, so he calmly tells him to go ahead and make his move. Huang Pham sneers, stating that if he refuses to surrender, he will gladly blast him off the stage. He calls forth Lightning Strike. Lightning energy crackles and swirls around the egg in Lam Thu's hand. Without even bothering to look back, the young man turns away, casually saying sorry. A casual strike from a gold rank 9-star expert is not something many silver ranks could ever survive. But when the referee remains silent, a confused Huang Pham wonders why everything is so incredibly quiet. Where are the cheers for his easy victory? Wondering if he accidentally killed the kid with too much power. Huang Pham turns around, only to see Lam Thu holding the egg high, completely absorbing all of his lightning energy. Huang Pham stands there frozen. This is absolutely impossible. He quickly charges his lightning power again, unleashing yet another strike. Who brings an egg to absorb lightning anyway? Huang Pham discharges electricity like crazy, but nothing is happening. Huang Pham finally realizes there is a major issue here. Is this crazy egg insulated or something? Getting even more heated. Huang Pham challenges him. Let us see how you dodge my area of effect skills. Spotting the incoming sea of lightning, Lam Thu happily raises his strange egg high in the air. Feast time, do not let any of it go to waste. Once again, Huang Pham's entire stock of lightning power is completely devoured by that hungry egg. Lam Thu chuckles to himself, even C4 bombs get swallowed by this dragon egg, let alone some tiny spark show. Huang Pham is completely dumbfounded. What kind of monster is this guy anyway, and how is anyone supposed to fight that? Out of options, the guy calls the referee, demanding a penalty because his opponent is clearly cheating. The judges discuss but find absolutely no rule against bringing eggs to a fight. Lam Thu looks right at his accuser and calmly asks classmate Huang to produce some actual evidence of cheating. With zero proof, Huang Pham has no choice but to take the loss. Are you kidding me? He fumes you swallowed every single one of my skills, and that does not count. Meanwhile, over in this cafeteria of Shanghai Lin Vo Academy, the students watching the screen are all gossiping about Lam Thu. What kind of egg is that anyway? An invincible egg is definitely awesome, but this guy Lam Thu is playing way too dirty. A lot of students really do not approve of his cheap tactics. Yeah, even if he goes to our school, I still want to give that guy a good beating. Tan Chan Chan giggles to herself, knowing that Lam Thu never plays any of his matches straight. What can she do? She is already starting to miss him. Huang Pham refuses to back down, boasting that his physical stats are at gold rank, so there is no way he loses to a silver-tier player like Lam Thu. Lam Thu goads his opponent to keep the lightning coming, asking if he is seriously done already. He says he still wants to see more of those legendary gold-tier skills of his. Fuming Huang Fam yells at him not to get cocky, because he is actually the combat champion of Ying Tian. Lam Thu remains calm and says fine. So you want to settle this with a classic fistfight, right? He smiles inside his secret martial arts manual is finally going to pay off. Dropping his bag, Lam Thu agrees but warns him no magic powers, because if he cheats, Lam Thu is bringing back his shield.